Everybody, I'm going to say that we're live. Tuesday, 2:30, you know the deal. Myself, Ben Raza here with Fantasy Golf Man, Tim Frank. To break down, we just determined before the show, we're calling this the Colonial. We're not going Dean and DeLuca. We're not going Fort Worth Invitational, Charles Schwab Challenge. It's just Colonial. They've played the course for like 80 years. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, this is like one of the classic tour stops. Great course, great event, and they keep screwing with the name. And Jeff Feinberg's had a funny tweet, and I kind of had the same thought. Was like when people started talking about the Charles Schwab Challenge, I thought they were talking about the Champions Tour. So
Yep. That's first thing I Googled, and I'm just like, where is this course history / like Bernard Longer is just taking over. And then I realized that, yeah, there's multiple different things, but I do like, name aside, I like this event. I've always liked it. We got a stronger field, which is kind of surprising. Maybe I think going forward, now that the schedule's a little different, we may see some things in the future change with guys' schedules. But hey, I'm not complaining. We got a lot of guys from Bethpage made the trip over back down to Texas.
yeah, I'm very excited for this week. Short hitters track, so obviously right up my alley. Much better than Bethpage, much better than Augusta. This is like in the holy trinity of old man golf courses with like Harbor Town and stuff like that.
This
But
is
yeah, it's a really good field this year. I'm surprised, so I'm excited for this week.
It did take a big hit right before we went on. Jason Kokrak has decided to not tee it up. Roberto Castro in the field, though. Can't
Well, yeah, the
right
field
on
got
that.
much better with Castro in there. Kokrak knew he was getting drug tested if he had like one more top 25, so he just decided to lay low for a week. I
Play the
think.
long con. Very
Yeah,
smart by him.
He's going to drink a lot of water, try and flush the PEDs out of his system that him and Rory Sabatini are taking.
Just the elixir that gets them in the high 8K range, which we're
Exactly.
going to break down. But yeah, you mentioned obviously they've played at Colonial forever. So if you're a course history, this is your mecca. You could go back to Keith Clearwater's victory like 50 years ago and break it all down. But do you want to talk about the course? Obviously, a tree line, pretty difficult test when the wind blows.
Yeah, 7,200 yard par 70 bent grass greens. Like I said, to me it's one of the kind of premier accuracy courses on tour, along with places like Harbor Town. Yeah, very tree line. I think you have to be accurate off the tee. Distance off the tee to me really doesn't make much of a difference this week. It's not that much of an advantage. I know we've seen Rahm say he's going to try and bomb his way around the course, and it's worked for him 2 years. But I think generally speaking, that's not how you attack this course. So yeah, I'm looking at guys who don't rely as much on off the tee game, more on approach game. I think around the green will be important because it's hard to hit greens, small greens. If the wind blows, you'll see a lot of missed greens. But yeah, I'm kind of generally looking at the more accurate type of players. And just going over the winners here. I mean, we had Rose last year, good all-around game, but Kisner, Spieth, Kirk, Adam Scott, then you have Boo Weekley, who was really good at Harbor Town. Zach Johnson has a great record here. David Tom, Steve Stricker. So if you kind of think about those names, a lot in common, more accuracy than length. Good iron play, good short game.
It definitely is a course that, precision is more important. Now, Rahm is defying that, and it's just about risk reward to me. It's not like you can't be aggressive. It's just the payoff for him isn't as much as it would be at some other courses. Obviously, he's found a way to do it. He lost strokes off the tee last week for the first time basically ever. And that was something that's a rarity, but I guess before we dive in, I wanted to ask you that. Do you take much from Bethpage in terms of factoring it into what we see this week? Because I really don't, to be honest.
Not much. I still like to look at the ball striking and putting numbers to get a good idea. Guys that lost a ton of strokes ball striking or gained a ton of strokes putting. I think you can glean a little bit from that just to see how they played. But obviously, it's a completely different course. A lot like when we went from Augusta to RBC Heritage, just completely different. Different field. And the conditions were just brutal last week on top of everything. On top of the tough course, it got really difficult on Sunday. So yeah, I don't take too much out of it, but I am still interested in kind of the underlying stats, and to see how guys, maybe not in their finishing position, but kind of how they got there. Were they good or bad off the tee? Were they good or bad on approach and putting, things like that? So yeah, I guess I put a little bit of stock into it, but not as much as I would on a normal week, especially because it's such a different test.
It really is. And yeah, looking obviously the strokes gain metrics, I like to see, but you said it. The weekend, I mean, guys like Berger, it was like, oh, where did he go? Finished like 70th after all that. And it can just get away from you at a course like Bethpage, just a little different, even though it's early. It looks like last year it was really calm and these guys tore it apart. I doubt we see that. The wind looks like it's going to be back to what we normally see at Colonial, and that'll present challenges for the field, but we'll dive into it. We got Rose 11-4 kicking it off. John Rahm, you boy Spieth, Ricky, and Xander. To be honest, I really wasn't drawn to anyone in particular. Rose and Ricky just on kind of pedigree, I guess. But what did you make of it? I mean, it's a strong field, but at the same time, I didn't feel overly confident in any of our big name guys.
Yeah, I think I'm more preferential to guys that have a more well-rounded game rather than off the tee. So it's kind of weird. I feel like we have like a 1v1 where it's like Rose versus Rahm, which is really a coin flip, but I think Rahm just relies on off the tee so much, and that's not that that's not an advantage. It's an advantage every week, but I think it's less of an advantage this week. And same thing with Ricky versus Xander or Molinari versus Finau. I think in all those situations, I'm going with kind of the more well-rounded guy rather than the guy who relies on more on off the tee. So I like Rose at the top. T29 last week, but struck the ball well. He's gained over 10 strokes with the ball striking in his last two events after he missed the cut at the Masters. That's good. I mean, his game, I think, obviously sets up well here. He won here last year. And I like Ricky, too. The ball striking is coming around. I kind of talked about this a bunch this year. At the beginning of the year, the ball striking really wasn't that good, doing a lot with the putter in the short game. And now the ball striking is getting better. I mean, it's not as elite as some of these other guys, but it doesn't need to be as elite when you have the short game that he has. So he's gaining more strokes with the ball striking. Only 2.2 last week, but he gained 6.5 at Wells Fargo, 5.2 at Valero. So those are his ball striking numbers from the last three events. So I like that. So we love his short game, and I think when the ball striking has been improving, I like him here. I think it's a good track for him. So yeah, I think Rose and Fowler for me at the top are the two that I like, just kind of based on their recent ball striking and just general all-around game rather than relying on the driver.
I like how what you just did. You paired up all the top-end golfers with one guy, and you just left out Spieth. You just didn't acknowledge him. Everyone got a pair like musical chairs, and he's just left in the cold. Gained, I'm sure you saw this, over 10 strokes putting, saved everything. Do you have any interest there going to Texas?
Oh, man. I made one tweet this morning, and I just got blasted for
Ooh, I didn't read it. I got to go back.
Well, here's what I said. First of all, I don't like him. He's overpriced. And the 10 strokes putting last week was a total fluke. That's not going to repeat itself. The ball striking was mediocre, really wasn't any better than it has been all year. But I think that you can't totally write off the psychological effect of him coming in third. In his mind, he's back, I think. I mean, I'm not playing him at all, but I think people are totally writing it off. But I mean, in his mind, I think he thinks he's back. He doesn't think, oh, well, that was a fluke. I gained 10 strokes putting. He's like, all right, I'm back. I'm coming to Colonial, my home state where I've won before. I don't think you can totally write off the psychological effects. I know that sounds stupid for everyone that's math-based, data-driven, and it does sound a little funny, but I mean, golf is a weird sport. I don't like Spieth, but I mean, there is a confidence factor, I think, that comes along with finishing third at the PGA Championship and then going to a place where you've had a lot of success. I don't like Spieth. I'm not playing Spieth. I will have $0 invested in Spieth. So,
but if he wins,
now I have a victory lap pre-set up. I know Colin Drewby gave me a lot of shit for hedging.
It's about that hedge life.
God forbid you'd have a nuanced take on Twitter and not just go all in on one direction with Spieth.
No respect out there in the world. I'll say this. The one thing about Spieth that I like is above all other guys up here, he's coming in more motivated. I think that's a given. Like for him, maybe that is the catalyst. And he wants obviously to get back in business where, not that these other guys aren't trying, but I'm sure that Rose and Ricky are not too worried about the Colonial performance. Whereas if Spieth slides back again, it could just be a blip on the radar where showed up at a major, got in, with a ridiculous putting performance, and it doesn't mean much because the ball striking, you're right, it really didn't change. He just gained more strokes putting than his usual. Like he only gains 5, and now it's 10. It's just ridiculous. But, can you go there? We say this every week. It's still Spieth. At some point, I obviously think he turns it around. I'm more apt to take pretty much everyone else, though, if I had to make real decisions up there. Going down, though, Molinari, he leads off the 9K range, and I'm not a big Molly guy, but I think this is a perfect fit for his game. He gains off the tee, but he's not a bomber, can lean on the irons, and really it's just been a cold putter for him lately. He's striking it opposite basically of Spieth. He's really tee to green clicking.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Molinari here. I think, when we think of Molinari tracks, I know he's kind of defied that somewhat on this really hot streak, but if you go years back, I think this would be kind of a great track for him if you think about what his strengths are. Gained 8.3 with the ball striking last week at the PGA. That was great. Lost over 4 putting. So, yeah, great ball striking, poor putting performance. He missed the cut at Harbor Town, but the ball striking was okay. Gained a stroke and a half in the 2 rounds. Just the short game was really bad there. And then prior to that, it was the Masters where he was right there. Probably should have won. The match play where he played, very well. So, I mean, yeah, I love this spot for him. I don't think a ton of people will be on him because they'll see, miscut at Harbor Town. They'll see T48 last week, but the ball striking was phenomenal. I think this is a great course for him as a guy that doesn't rely at all on his length.
Yeah, well said. Ownership, it's always hard to gauge. We'll monitor, obviously, behind the paywall. We have that proprietary data. Working down, though, this is where it gets interesting for me. Finau, Bryson, Paul Casey, Kiz, Poulter, who just know, and Usti. The guy I want to talk about immediately to me is Bryson. Another miscut, but I still find myself wanting to go there. Is that just bad? Should I just take the low-hanging fruit and just play Paul Casey?
Yeah, I don't know. Something seems like it's wrong with Bryson. It's really a prolonged slump with him where we haven't seen too much. I don't know. Sometimes you see guys that are struggling, but maybe you see something in the ball striking or the putter has just been atrocious. He just hasn't been good. So, I don't think I'll go there. I love Paul Casey. I think everyone's going to love Paul Casey this week at 9,300. He has good course history here, 10th, 13th, and 5th. Those are 3 of his finishes the last 5 starts here. The ball striking really good last week at the PGA. Really good at Wells Fargo. So those are his 2 starts coming off that missed cut, that debacle at the Masters. But he's bounced back really nicely. 2 really good ball striking performances. And, like we kind of said, it's a different Paul Casey. He has some missed cuts mixed in. He doesn't seem to be making every cuts, but some, very high finishes, a first, a second, a third, and a fourth in his last 9 starts. I think this course sets up well. I think the ball striking is really good. And he, the missed cuts seem to have come in the big spots. Players at the Masters and some of these smaller tournaments, he's really kind of feasted on. So I think at 9,300, he's one of my favorite plays. He'll be really popular this week, though. Definitely
going to be popular, and that doesn't mean just don't play him. I'm going to certainly use him in certain spots. I definitely will try to maybe I'm going to get to Bryson. I know there's not a ton stats wise that lines up, but I just can't get over that run. He's won a lot of tournaments in a pretty small sample size. Now, game is not where it was, no doubt about that. Can I convince you / should I be to go to Usti?
Or is it just... I don't think so. Wasn't great last week. It was a major. He was supposed to come in the top 5 because that's what Usti does.
The irons are just the thing that's concerning me. Like, he was really good at Valspar, but then when you dig into what he actually did, it was all short game and putting. The irons, I don't think set up. I like his off the tee game for this type of course. Just, doesn't need to bomb it, can drive it straight, keep it in, but he needs to get a little more going with the irons. It's as simple as that.
And that's really strange because we always think of Usti as being like this great ball striker, kind of like in the Adam Scott mold. But, Yeah, it hasn't quite been there, and that's a little scary. The performance last week didn't really do anything to inspire me to play him this week. And 9K, that's not cheap. I would definitely prefer Casey, definitely prefer Kisner, who this is just a great course fit for, has a good course history here, or going down to somebody like Grillo.
There you go. Yeah, so right on cue, the 8K, this is, well, Kokrak was supposed to kick this off. But instead, we've got Roy Sabatini, who is just on fire. Grillo, Piercy, Fitzy, Ches, Dahmen, Billy Ho, who Chad asked about, which I want to get to. It's a lot of guys who seem overpriced, but when you look at this field, this is where they're going to fall. I'm with you. I'm definitely Team Grillo. He rallied. He was bad Thursday, really good Friday, good on the weekend. But what are you doing with, your guilty pleasure, Scott Piercy? Who else from this range really kind of stood out to you?
I think
Or
Fitzy's interesting. I think it's a good
Ooh.
course fit. Yeah, I know. I never like Fitzy, but I think this is a good course for him. A course where you don't need a lot of length. Boy, I don't know. Ryan Palmer, I believe, is a member here, but this just seems like the worst course fit possible for him. But he does have some good results. After Fitzy, I'd probably go down to Dahmen, your boy Raiden.
That's
Raiden, man,
right. Bucket Hat Man is just, he's
yeah, the
conjuring it.
approach game has been just on fire. He gained 5.1 with approach last week. He didn't do anything else well, and he finished T71. But prior to that, he gained, I think it was like 10.4 with the ball striking 2 weeks ago. Where was that where he had the runner up? Was that
That was at Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo? Yeah.
Homa beat him.
Yeah, so he gained 10.4 with the ball striking at Wells Fargo, and then last week gained 5 with approach, which was really good, and then finished T71. But I think this is a course where, definitely more emphasis on the irons. I really like him, and he's been very solid his last, boy, if you look back, he's 71st second, then 18th, 16th. He's got a couple 12th place finishes. This is all in the span of about 8 starts. So I really like him. I think it's a good price, a good course, and we're just kind of following the ball striking with him.
He's one of those guys, and obviously it doesn't work like this, but it really seems like he's close to actually getting through. And even if he's not, if he keeps doing what he's doing, that's going to be fine for your DFS lineups. But there's no doubt that he's all over the leaderboard. I know obviously a ton of people have been hitting him first round leader. It seems like every week at this point. Obviously, I missed out on all of them. I like Fitzy as well. The one thing, and I was on Pat's show this morning, and he brought it up. Good point. It seems, he says, "Oh, Fitzy, I love Heritage. This is a perfect course." All his really good results over here are on long course. Augusta, API. It's counterintuitive because I agree this should be a good spot for Fitzy, but he hasn't shown that at some of these similar comp courses.
Yeah, that is kind of true. And he won the European Tour Championship, that end of the season event. I believe that's really a bomber's track.
Really long. And it's like, what, you look at some of these technical, even Harbor Town, where he's been adamant that he loves that course. He hasn't had a ton of success there. It's just very odd. So it's something to consider. I'm still going to certainly have some, but that is just something that was worth mentioning. Last guy, because I'm not going to get to Sabatini. I know he's playing fantastic. I just prefer Grillo. But next to Dahmen, Ches, he's another one. Him and Billy Ho, they're playing pretty well. Do you have interest in those type of guys, or is it just not enough room to get them in the pool?
Yeah, I don't think I'm in love with them enough to get to them. Maybe a small amount. Ches, I think, better course fit. Horschel's not playing poorly, but just kind of meh. I don't know. There's just not a ton to get excited about. He's making cuts, not a ton of high finishes. The ball striking hasn't been great. So I think there's probably other places I would go. But I mean, I don't think Horschel's terrible, but there's just nothing. I don't see anything in the ball striking numbers, any of the stats, any of the form that really jumps out to me.
No, the one thing about him is he's made, I don't have it calculated, but it looks like he's made like 25 of 26 cuts. He's making a ton of cuts that date back all the way kind of to last year. So should he be able to get through? Yeah, definitely. This is only 120 something guys. It's an easier cut, but I'm kind of with you. It's going to take maybe a really hot putting performance, which he's capable of, for him to do something. I think I'd rather allocate my shares elsewhere. Last guy before we kick off the sevens, Kevin Na, who was really good last year here. I'm not there. I know he's real good short game. It just, again, for me, I prefer other guys, and we're about to talk about the high sevens, which I really like.
Yeah, I'm not on nah. I'd prefer if we'll just get into the sevens right at
Neds.
7,900 is Snedeker.
It seems perfect, doesn't it? Like,
It does seem like the perfect course for him when you think about the places where he's had a lot of success, where he's won at Harbor Town, at Wyndham, Pebble, shorter courses. He was 16th last week, gained 3.1 with the approach, which isn't great, but for him, he's not a ball striker. Like him gaining 3.1 with approach is really good. You don't really need much more than that. He gained 1.9 with the approach at Harbor Town, which again isn't great, but for him, it's like he's such a good short game player, and the putter gets so hot that you just need him not to spray the ball everywhere, and you're going to have a really good chance. And this just seems, like I said, a great course for him. I feel like I say this about him all the time. When he plays well, I think he has huge win equity because we've just seen him win so many times. When you compare him to some of these other guys, we know when he's on, yeah, he can compete with all these guys at the top. So, yeah, I think it's a good course for him. And I think even though the ball striking numbers haven't been amazing, you don't really need them to be amazing. The thing you worry about with Snedeker is him losing 3-4 shots with the ball striking. If he's just gaining, 2-3 shots on approach, the putter can get hot. I think it's just a great spot for him at 7,900, huge win equity.
no doubt. And you said it, his off the tee game you just need to survive that. If he's punching out and he's in the trees, yeah, it's going to be rough. And we've seen Sneds do that, but I'm willing to kind of take that risk. The other thing I like about him, if the course plays super easy, say it's very calm, we've seen him go low. He can do that with his putter. If the wind is up and it's brutal, we've seen him compete in that. That's not going to bother him at all. He's kind of built no matter what it throws at the players to, if he's on, he'll be there. And sub 8K in this type of field, it's hard not to be interested, especially with the game rounding into form. As we go lower, though, we got ZJ, guys like Sunjae Im and Siwoo, Berger and Hoffman. I think there's a lot to unpack, and just the high sevens. These guys, Berger and Hoffman, for me, both trending upwards. Slow starts to the year, but I kind of feel pretty good with them.
Yeah, I really like Berger. He's another guy where if you look at anything, nothing's really jumping out. But he's kind of come back and just kind of easing his way, and it looks like he's kind of trending in the right direction, as you said. Gained over 7 strokes with the approach in his last 2 events, so that's really good. He was T23 at Byron Nelson, T33 at RBC Heritage. And, we think about where does he play well? Well, the only place he's won is Memphis, but it's a short track, not a great field. I think more of an accuracy course than a Bomber's Paradise. He had a runner-up at Honda, which, you can draw some similarities between Honda, Memphis, and here. Somewhat similar tracks. But, yeah, I think that, if we've seen him play all year, we could definitely see him $1,000 more expensive. The results aren't quite there, but he just seems to be simmering. In my opinion, I think he's going to have a big week at some point here.
It does seem like, those are guys just waiting, and they're just, I don't know. I think this is an example of if their form was a little better, they would be in the mid 8s. There's no doubt that they've belonged, and we've seen them priced kind of in that next tier. So can be a buy low spot. What about Sunjae? Because I think this is a great course for his game, but his game is in the worst shape that it's maybe has been. Is he just like permanently out of gas now because he played too much? Like, doesn't seem to be refueling.
Yeah, no, I don't really have much interest in. Yeah, it seems like a good course for him, but the results have really fallen off. He's not taking any time off. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think he might need to take a couple weeks off and recharge, but yeah, the results have really just not been there the last 4 or 5 starts.
It's tough. There's just too many guys for me to have a ton of him because we talked about those guys. I'll throw in a couple more. Abraham Answer, I think, is fine. He can gain off the tee. He got crazy hot on Saturday with this, but he gained 6 strokes putting in 1 round at Bethpage, which is just stupid. But he's here and there, he trends upward. And then Benny on, I mean, if you think he's all right, this is a pretty good spot for him. It's just a matter of where his game is at, obviously.
Yeah, he sent out that weird tweet before the PGA where he's like, I'm fine, but I can't swing 100% or something.
Oh, I know, because I came back from the show with hundreds of notifications in an injury debate thread of if that information is useful. But
oh yeah, I don't want to go down that. I don't want to go
please.
down that road.
But yeah, Benny, obviously some of the ownership I think will dissipate just because he's, it's not the full steam ahead with him. Ball striking still was good. It was obviously another bad putting week. It's always
I don't think I'll go there. I'm gonna go to my boy Russell Knox at 7,400. I think it's a perfect course for him. 3 starts here: 20th, 24th, 20th, 24th, 21st. Not amazing results, but solid. But it just lines up with all the places that he plays well. Kind of like Snedeker. He plays well at Harbor Town. He plays well at Honda. He's won at Mayakoba, won at the Travelers. Just a short track specialist. Didn't play well last week, but I mean that was too big of a course for him. And he was good with the ball striking, plus 2.4 with the ball striking, lost 2.7 on and around the green, plus 3.7 with the ball striking at Nelson. We saw him kind of peaking right around the time of the match play, the Masters. The ball striking, the approach game was really on fire, and it cooled off a little bit. But I just think 7,400 is too cheap for him in this spot because this is really a perfect setup for him. And he's not playing that bad. If you look at the form, cut 43rd cut, but I think this is a good spot for him.
I like the fit for him. It's a good course. And Knox, I do have trouble figuring out exactly how good he is on a macro level. Like sometimes I think he's incredibly legit. Then other times I'm like, maybe this guy just isn't that good.
Let me help you out. WGC champion Russell Knox.
Good point.
Does that help?
Put some respect on that name. God. And then I look, Matt Jones is right there. Speaking of no respect, that guy just quietly, everyone's like, oh, Rory Sabatini's playing amazing. Matt Jones is also playing amazing, except his price never moves.
Exactly. It's like you can get the same thing, a light version for
very light,
a lot cheaper.
The O'Doul's version. God. And then you work down, you got guys like Danny Lee, I think will garner some interest. Johnny Vegas was awful last week. If you want to go back there, I don't think this is the best course, but I guess I could see it. Corey Connors, that's your guilty pleasure.
My guilty pleasure with that I had none of when he just went ham with the ball striking at Valero.
I don't see below Knox in terms of 7K options. I don't see a ton. JT Poston, these are just flyers for me.
Boy. I think Burns is interesting. Gained 4 strokes with the ball striking last week. He relies a lot on the putter, and he's got a lot of length. I don't love that he relies on the putter, but he might just be a good putter. I don't know. It seems like he has a pretty decent sample size of being a good putter. I don't love that he relies on length. As like we said, this is a course that doesn't require a length, doesn't really give him much of an advantage. But I liked the ball striking last week.
He's similar to Mullinax in my mind. I don't know if you see that at all. Like both long can putt decently. I don't know if this is the best course for him, but there's no doubt he can score. We see even in the brutal conditions, that guy makes birdies. He just makes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I love him, but I think he's definitely playable. It's almost like the guys that I truly think are good putters, it doesn't bother me. I don't like to chase putting. I don't really put that into the mix too often, but I mean, I legitimately think he's a good putter. I think we even saw that when he was making limited starts last year.
I mean, yeah, it's not putting such a polarizing thing, and we could do a whole show on it, but I'll just say, I try to take it out, but I'm not gonna, it's like, oh, that's a bonus. It's like Ricky, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with his ball striking numbers don't need to be as high because I have a built-in spot of he can bail out a handful of shots with the putter. It's the opposite for Benyon. It's the reverse. You're like, he's going to give a couple back just because he can't putt. So Burns, he's interesting. Bill Haas is there. Don't talk about no respect.
He is not interesting.
FedEx Cup winner Bill Haas. You know who's not interesting is Neiman.
He's just not good. I'm sorry.
Sad. Really
I feel
sad.
like I don't know what happened when he burst on tour, but whatever it was, I think I know what it was. It was the 9 strokes, or an event he gained putting like the first, 6 times he teed it up.
And that's credit to you. And you've said this, you said it with Wyndham Clark the other day. Neiman, after a couple months, and I'm certainly guilty of it too, you would say, oh, we know he's a great putter, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe we don't, and it's a small sample size. Because now look at him. It's just been terrible. And the ball striking has regressed too. He was very good here last year. I have a hard time.
But I think that was like right in the heart of that
coming
out of the gate hot, was it not? It was like Memorial, Greenbrier, right around this time.
He couldn't miss, though. The guy was on fire. Yeah, exactly. Memorial, this, Quicken Loans, Greenbrier, John Deere, Valero, just boom. Last guy for me, Kramer Hickok, who's a Longhorn, good with the irons in his last event, making cuts, made 7 out of 8, flat 7K. I think he finds the weekend, and whatever he does from there is kind of a bonus almost.
Sure, I still don't know the difference between him and Wyndham Clark, but
I know, but he's the better one right now. Take my word for it.
If you
could just go to KH Lee, who kicks off the 6s, which you discovered, and now you're at the back of the line with that guy. Everyone plays him. Before we dig into the 6K range, as I always say, if you are interested in getting more content behind the paywall, you can sign up at awesemo.com, obviously. Use the promo code JazzRaz. You get 50% off your first month. And we got golf packages. We got baseball. We got all sports, projections, plenty of articles from me, Jason Roslin. We have Slack. You know the drill. So if you're interested, obviously get in contact with us. We'd love for you to stop by, at least try it out. And you can hear more about KH Lee behind the paywall. But this is where every week, it starts to get a little dicey in the 6s. I have a couple guys, but I didn't find myself loving pretty much anyone.
I love Sean Stefani.
Oh, I hope you watch, in addition to this pod, watch the PMA show with me. I was all about Sean Stefani on that show. He talk about cooking with the irons.
That guy is on fire. So more than 5.8 strokes gained approach in 3 of his last 4 events. He was bad at Valspar, but he was 20th at the Nelson, 13th at Wells Fargo, and then I believe the other one was Valspar. Just really, really good irons. He's a Texan. Like we said, this doesn't require a ton of length. It's more about accuracy, more about iron game. Yeah, I mean,
throw in Puerto Rico, really good there. We don't have the strokes gain data, but this guy is playing phenomenal. And it looks, from what we can see, that it's all being done primarily with the approach game. And this is a week that you're not going to gain a ton. The blueprint is not gaining a ton with off the tee. It's not gaining a ton around the greens. It's hit it in the fairway, attack these pins. Obviously, you always want to make your putts, but you're going to see guys, if you get hot with the irons, definitely compete. So I think it better be good, because you and me have both stuck our necks out for a guy that I couldn't pick out of a lineup.
To gain 5.8 strokes with approach over one event is really, really good. But we see it happen. We see guys just do it like a Piercy, and then all of a sudden the next week they're terrible. And I fall into that trap a lot, where it's like I follow a 1-week sample of good approach game. But 5.8 is huge. And to do that in 3 of 4 starts, that's not a fluke at all, I don't think. And I think it's just a great course for him on top of that.
He's clearly found something. And even if you want to look last year here, he lost 5 strokes putting, and he did not have a good showing, but he gained 4 strokes with the approach. So he's coming to a course that, at least with the approach game, he's had success at. I think it lines up. And again, this guy is 6,800. So what are we really asking for? Beat 50 guys and find the weekend. Kevin Streelman, I think, is just a solid play. I don't know if it's a great course, but he better with not having to do a ton of long iron work. That's what I think he sees here. do you want to go back to Taylor Gooch with just blind? He hasn't played in a while now.
Well, he was T13 last week on the web.com tour. I know that doesn't
There we
mean
go.
much, but
That means more just because he's coming off injury.
yeah, it means something to me. The guy was just, he was another one where just the irons were on fire before he got hurt. I mean, he's still very highly ranked in strokes gained approach, 1.2 strokes on approach, I mean, for the season. And that's including a couple events at the end where I'm guessing he was hurt. And we saw him, he had at, where was it? The Desert Classic. He was fourth. He was third at Farmers. I mean, this is all on the back of like huge approach game performances. So yeah, I mean, I like him. And I think if he was just coming in cold, we hadn't seen him at all, I don't know if I'd be interested in him. But the T13 last week, granted, is on the web.com tour, but I mean, it's something. You know, he got 4 rounds under his belt and he played pretty well. So for 6,700, and we know, and we even saw this last year with him where he would just have, it kind of reminded me of Corey Connors, where he would have stretches of being really bad, but then he would have these events where it's just like he's gaining like 8-9 strokes on approach. And, you know, he would just kind of have them once in a while, and it really caught my eye. So yeah, I like Gooch this week.
He is the type of guy, you know, for MME portfolios, it's hard not to look to him even when you don't see it, because we have a pattern of him coming out of nowhere, getting locked in and going crazy low. On the flip side, it can fall off at any point, so it's a risk reward type of play, but that's what you're looking for down here anyway. I guess I have to come around a little. Doug Gim is just playing good golf. I don't know a ton about him. Obviously, I've seen him more now that he's getting some starts up here. He was good at Byron Nelson. I have no problem using him if I need to get into this range, but
man, Hostler is 6,700.
So I was about to bring him up half as a joke, half as a serious. He loses perpetually with the irons. It's not what you want to see in any way, but he is rounding into form. I only say that in the sense of he's made 3 straight cuts and the putter is heating up again. And this guy is a good putter. We know that. Another Texas guy. I'm still skeptical because it's impossible to compete when you're losing. I mean, he's lost at like 10 out of 11 weeks with the irons. But
yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I think this is a course. It's not, you don't have to be Adam Scott to get around this course. It's not like it's not Bethpage Black.
Are you playing Hostler? This would be from the top rope. I thought you were going to be disturbed by
no, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't even realize he was in the field, let alone 6,700 in this field. Like you said, he
was 36 last week, which obviously is a massive improvement for what we have seen. He gained around the green and with the putter, lost with the approaches. But again, even when he was cooking, it wasn't a typical profile of what we normally see. It was a lot of putting.
Well, the reason I liked Bo Hostler in the beginning is because, so I mean, we're going back like 2.5 years, but when he was on the web.com tour, he had 2 runners up. Last year, he had 2 runners up. And I mean, these were just kind of intermixed with a lot of bad performances, but it's kind of like Siwoo Kim, where if you're going to get him at low ownership, and you'll get him at low ownership this week, he has huge upside. Do we ever really know when it's coming? No, probably not. But we know the guy can make everything. This isn't really you don't have to be a great ball striker. You don't have to be great off the tee, at least. So the guy has big upside, and I think for 6,700, he's worth a shot. He won't be owned.
No, he's going to be crazy, crazy low owned in some ways, as he should be. But I know exactly what you're saying. That's where contest selection, and we talk about that a lot more on the Wednesday night show. Don't play him in certain small field things. I don't see any merit to doing that. If you're trying to win a top-heavy GPP with tens of thousands of people, you know, Jazz Janawana, or whatever his name is, was making the difference last week. You need to get a little off the grid in certain spots. So I don't hate it. And now just working down, quick shout out to poor Brendan Steele. Imagine seeing him at 6,500 a couple years ago when he was dealing. He is just in awful form. I can't go there. Adam Schenk, I think, is fine. He just makes cuts. Don't have a ton as we work to the mid 6s, do you?
No, McCarthy at 66 was good at Byron Nelson, was really good on approach. And yeah, I think he's decent, but now mid six, just not much for me. There's actually a couple guys at 6,100 if you need extreme punts.
Carlos Ortiz in the gang.
Yeah, for sure. Carlos Ortiz, 12th at the Nelson, gained 5 strokes with the ball striking. We're kind of, the whole world's been waiting for him to prove that he's a good player after he had that like crazy hot streak on the web.com tour 25 years ago.
It's coming.
It's coming, but yeah, I mean, I think he's got a little bit of upside, and he played well at Nelson. I mean, 6,100 is kind of egregious. We also didn't touch on the fact that this is an invitational, so it's a slightly smaller field. You're going to get better chance of getting 6 to 6. So theoretically, you should be a little bit more aggressive. You have more guys making the cut. But 6,100 is a little egregious for him, I think, even though he hasn't played great. I think he's coming off a good performance at the Nelson. I mean, Ryan Armour, I don't know. I don't feel like he should be 6,100. I feel like this is a good course for him. The results have been kind of spotty recently. But I mean, going back 6th at Valspar, 12th at Honda, 22nd at Sony, plays well at the shorter courses. I think he's worth a shot at 6,100 as well.
That price, it opens up some builds that you just can't get. That's why I think there's some appeal to going there. Like if you use one of them, you're going to be able to take a build that other people just can't get to. Never mind it working. It's just unique in itself. So if you say you want to start Rose Rom or something and you want to be different, this is a way to get there. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but at least there's merit. I have a tough time taking guys where it's like, well, they're all 6,800. What's the point? Like 6,100 is just different, if nothing else. So you can look to them. We do have Keith Clearwater at 6,100, who hasn't. What do you think the chances are he doesn't finish dead last? He's got to be a heavy favorite, right?
Oh yeah, I mean this guy. I don't know what he's doing. I guess apparently if you win Colonial, it's like the Masters. You can just come back and play every year for the rest of your life. He serves
the Champions Dinner every year.
And he's not even the Stone Min. The guy he doesn't play anywhere but here, and he hasn't made a cut here. I go back to 2008. So I mean,
it's been a while for Keith. Sorry, guy. But yeah, I mean, Justin Hadley, 6,200, not going there. There are some names in the sixes if you want to be aggressive. And I do think I glossed over it as well. 156 guys to 120 something guys. It's a big difference. It's just that many less spots that guys have to be. So 6 to 6 is going to be elevated, but at the same time, you can take a more aggressive stance. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but at least you have a better shot everyone has a better shot of making this cut on the whole.
Yeah, for sure. I think you need to take that into account when you're making lineups. And I mean, these guys, Ortiz are not terrible. Ryan Armour, it's not like you're taking a complete shot with a guy. How much worse are
they than the guys? This is what I'm saying. In the mid sixes, I don't see a huge difference. Now, you want to get into going back to like Berger, Hoffman. Obviously, that's totally different. But when you're telling me I could take them or Bo Hostler, Taylor Gooch, it's not that big of a gap. And you're talking $600-700 could be super important.
Yeah, 100%.
Did you bet Russell Knox? Let's just start there.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. So
step one.
80-1 seems pretty big for this field. I just really love the course. I think there's some underlying stuff in his stats. Like last week, he missed the cut, but it was just not a good course fit, and the ball striking was all right. He's a big course fit. He's a lot like Kisner for me, where there's just certain courses where he's going to play well, and we feel like we know where those are, and there's certain courses where he's probably not going to play well, and this definitely seems like a Knox course. So yeah, I like him at 80-1. One at Travelers, one at Mayakoba, 2 short tracks.
Travelers, interesting comp. I looked at that too. Paul Casey tears that place apart, which there we go. Did you bet anybody else yet? Or you still?
I really like Stefani. I don't know. I don't know if I love him as an outright because I don't really think he's going to win, but I think he'd be a great top 10, top 20 bet. So he's 110-1 on Bovada. I haven't looked for
my goodness
top 10 odds on him, but you
get a nice price even on those.
I'm really liking Stefani, so this is a little bit scary.
Have not bet anything yet, but Sneds is a guy probably going to make my small card. You talked about this. The guy wins. Unlike some of these other guys that play good, Sneds can miss this cut. Sneds, but the win equity, it's there. Going to get a good number on him. Are you considering? I've seen his name because people love to do, and no one gets paid off, but Griot.
No. And then, we talked about Griot and I said I like him and I do like him, but the problem for me is like he feels like you're just locking in like a T26 or something with him,
23rd. So
I just like
I know.
He just, at least this year, just has not gotten over the hump. The ball striking is always good. It seems like the putting's always bad, but he's just never just done much. So no, I definitely don't like him for an outright. And I even question in tournaments, does he have the upside?
Him and Benyon, they do that where it's like, how many times do they knock on the door? I will say, Griot's chance to win anything was here last year. He gained 10.7 strokes putting, and he didn't win. He came in third, which is just ridiculous in itself.
Well, it was like list last week. It's like
7 something, right?
Of all the weeks for the guy to gain 7 strokes putting and he does nothing with the ball striking. It's like it's just a dumb game.
Yeah, it's very, very disturbing. I do like Griot. I think I like him a little more than you. I guess I'm banking that he can get there and pay off because he's going to need some placement points. You're right. This isn't, last man in, make your cut. He's got to return some stuff, and obviously that's a little tied.
Just bet him at -400 for a top 30.
There we go. Just bet him in the head-to-heads against Keith Clearwater. It's no juice if you win. Remember that out there. Anything else? Final thoughts? Obviously, we don't know the tee times and the weather and all that. I'm assuming you'll look into that. I think it's important to be cognizant. One of the waves could have an advantage with potential winds coming.
Yeah, always in Texas, you definitely want to pay attention to the wind. Any of these events, Valero, Nelson, Colonial, especially here, you're going to smaller greens, maybe more of an emphasis on around the green game, even if there's not a wave advantage, a distinct advantage for AM, PM, you just might want to put more emphasis on around the green if that wind is whipping, have tougher scoring environment. But yeah, this is one of my favorite events of the year, and this is the best field I think we've seen here that I can remember. So I'm excited for it.
Who is this? This is a off the cuff question. Who the hell is Tucker Watkins?
You see, that's got to be like Lanny Watkins' son or
nephew.
I don't know. I've never heard of the guy before, but I'm assuming, being that his last name is Watkins, it's like his son. Or I don't know how old Lanny is at this point. Maybe it's his grandson. I don't know.
Pass the ball to Tucker. Looks like he's an Arizona Wildcat. Good for him. Don't play him. Yeah, my final thoughts, obviously, this is a good event. I like it. It's going to be interesting to see it come off a major. That's a different feel. Hard to quantify what that means, but we'll deal with it. Tomorrow night, slight change. Our good friend Jason Roslin is on a cruise, so he's enjoying himself. We have, don't worry about it, Josh from Behind the Glass making his PGA debut. He's going to come hang out with me. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, so don't be alarmed. The 9 p.m. show will go on as usual. If you have any other questions, you can find us all in Slack or on awesomemode.com. As always, Tim, thanks for stopping by. It's going to be a good week. Thanks, everyone. Hit that like button on your way out. We'll be back next week. See you then.